Gorgeous to be in Coolgreaney, to be on being Quinn and Shaw. This is just one of a series of meetings which have been held throughout the county. Hopefully we'll get some more people later on. Over 2,000, it was just the figure today that over 3,000 people have turned up in County Wexford at various meetings and rallies over the past couple of months on issues such as the septic tank and household charges. Also there last 2 weeks ago outside of Enda Kenny's office we had up to, there was 3,000 people at a rally. Bunclody last night saw a meeting. A meeting in Bree there last week on the issue of rural schools saw over 400 people turn up. And it just shows that there's a whole series of meetings, big and small, all over the county, all over the country, so things are actually starting to really pick up on that front. And we see the figures from last night on the news that just 15% of people have paid the household charge. So it just shows that it is working. You know, it's a very positive sign that people are starting to fight back. Here in Coolgreaney, the local community have held meetings as well, just over the past couple of months on the issue of across the road we have Scoleasagon, a 4-teacher school, and they would be in danger of losing one teacher to go from 4 teachers down to 3 just because they're 1 pupil short under the terms of the new pupil teacher ratios. And basically tonight's meeting will have a pretty open agenda. It's whatever people would like to discuss, mainly issues to do with rural issues. A lot of people feel that the fabric of rural Ireland is very much being ripped apart at the moment. The attack on rural schools is just one of a series of assaults which has included post office and Garda station closures, planned septic tank upgrading costs which may be massive. We've got increases in school transport costs for rural areas. Banks in villages are closing. We have government policy exiling people to the far end of the world from all over this county. I just heard a story the other day of something like 7 players off of the Camolan football team are now in Australia. Bunclody team, which won the county final a couple of years ago, I think there's 5 of them in Australia, so there's a huge impact all across the country here, especially rural areas. And closing local schools, there's reckoned that there'll be up to 1,500 schools will be affected in some way by the recent budgetary cuts, either losing a teacher, amalgamation or closure. The first issue we'd just like to briefly address. Councillor John Kelly here, member of Wexford, sorry, John Brady, member of Wexford, Wicklow County Council, excuse me there, will be a guest speaker later on. Also here is Johnny Myton, Councillor from Enniscorthy, and Anthony Kelly from Wexford Town, who have come to lend their support as well. And both Johnny and Anthony here have been to the forefront of campaigns all over this county, and indeed John is the same in Wicklow, and he's been very actively involved in rural issues and urban issues, many issues such as Loughlinstown Hospital, which he'll be addressing later on. The issue of septic tanks, there was a report came out on Monday which said that there was up to 1,984 households in Wexford have been earmarked for to be inspected, and they said these will be random inspections. They said as many as 165,000 across the estate are being earmarked for inspection. They also quoted a figure for the costs of upgrading septic tanks as being somewhere in the region of an estimated 5,000 to 12,000 euro, and there is no guarantee, the figures that are given, there is no guarantee as of yet that there will be grant funding for that. So understandably that has a lot of people worried, so why people are attending meetings on this all over the county and all over the country. Household tax, the same. If you're a millionaire owner of a mansion, you pay the same as an unemployed person in a 2 up, 2 down, so obviously people see how unfair that is. We see how few people are registering for that, so that's a great optimistic sign. Water tax is again another, I mean, it's sold under the argument that it's for water conservation, which everybody is in favour of, but at the same time we find out that 60% of all water is lost before it reaches the household. So the obvious thing to do, the logical thing would be fix the pipe system. But of course, the usual Father Ted style solution is you just keep taxing people and get them to generate funding on the water rather than actually fixing the source of the problem. Small and rural schools, another issue which we'll throw out to the floor later on. As I said, 1,500 schools with 4 teachers or less face higher pupil-teacher ratios. It would mean the loss of significant numbers of teachers and the remaining teachers having responsibility for a greater spread of classes. And with the disadvantage, this will lead to children's education. And as I said, across the road here, Scoilesagon are leading a campaign at the moment to retain their 4th teacher. It's a very organised and determined community, so I'm sure that there is an appeals procedure there for people who are schools which are borderline. As I said, the school here is just 1 pupil under. So they have a very strong case to make. I think if this school doesn't be successful, no other school in the country, because it's a very clear-cut, very black and white issue. Again, as I said, the Quinn cuts would hold an axe over schools all over this county and all over this country. At an INTO meeting recently, we were counting the number of schools in North Wexford which may be affected by these cuts. And we counted 11 different rural primary schools which would be in danger of losing a teacher. Now, to lose a teacher to go from 4 down to 3 or from 3 to 2 would have massive impact on every child. Other schools around the 50 mark, maybe under the 50 mark, would face closure. There are several schools in North Wexford which are under the 50 mark or thereabouts. Ballyfat School just over the road here, the future of it would be uncertain. We're not talking about anything closing next year, we're talking about 3-4 years down the line. So it's great that people are starting to organise on this issue. And at the meeting there last week, it was held in Bree Community Centre. A principal, Tom Byrne from Connemara, turned up to it, and he's been speaking at rallies all over the country on the issue. Of course, the local government chief whip, who comes from Bree, didn't turn up. But as Tom Byrne was pointing out, he said that it's the intention of people like Rory Quinn, who are basically sitting around mahogany tables in Dublin 4 sipping coffee. It's very much the intention of these people to make it as difficult as possible for small schools to be viable, and in the long run therefore force them to close or force them to amalgamate, and children will have to move to larger schools which is further from their home, and this very much fits in with their agenda. Now they will come up with grandiose terms and say it's about rationalisation, you know, closing 2 schools down to make 1 large school, and obviously that anyone can work out the logic, but that's going to probably cost you more money. I mean, where are you going to put the population of the 2 schools? There won't be enough room in the 1 school. And I was just thinking of this issue, like the agenda that a lot of these people have, which is basically to shut down rural Ireland, as many would see it anyway. And Eamon Gilmore, I know from the Workers' Party, he was at one time an ally of, it was an infamous dictator called Ceausescu in Romania, and I know the Workers' Party, his party used to greet leaders from that regime here in Ireland in the 70s and 80s, and in Romania in the 80s they had an infamous policy of basically depopulating the countryside. They did it in a very forceful way. They actually raised villages and they moved people into large kind of monstrous grey apartment blocks on the edges of cities. That was actually the policy. Now, I'm not saying Eamon Gilmore or Rory Quinn would go that far, but probably the same effect, but in a more subtle way, whether it's through immigration or closing down schools, which are basically the heart of local community, or whether it's closing the post office, a Garda station, basically taxes, as I say, septic tank charges in towns, cities, sewage system is funded through general taxation. So most people would see it as being quite unfair that people in rural areas would be penalised with a bill of 5,000 to 10,000.